Arab money is good, and I guess that's why everybody's flocking to the Saudi Pro League as things stand now. Edouard Mendy of Chelsea has joined the list. Kalidou Koulibaly also has joined N'Golo Kante, Hakim Ziyech. So there's a Chelsea exodus to the Saudi Pro League as things stand now. So let's quick thoughts on what's going on. Even before we discuss the individual transfers, what's going on with Saudi Arabia? What's the plan with all these big stars coming? We saw it at one point with the MLS, but those were stars that had gone past their prime. These are guys who are still in their pomp, all moving to the Pro League.
I think it's to do with what we are hearing about the 2030 World Cup and Saudi Arabia's interest in hosting. It seems that they want to build their game up so that they can have a credible World Cup, because we know Saudi players don't move abroad a lot. So if you want to get your Saudi players up to scratch, you have to raise the level at home. And they believe bringing some of these players will raise the level of the Saudi Pro League, make it more attractive, and give their own players better competition to set themselves up for a credible challenge in 2030. I believe that that's
already they are hiring foreign coaches.
I believe that that's one of the main things, that the 2030 World Cup, they are looking for it. But for me, the truth is, sports washing is part of football right now. It's part of the sporting landscape. If you are a country and you want to raise your profile, sports is one of the easiest avenues to do it. We've seen the Saudi takeover of golf. We're hearing they're interested in the ATP. So they know what they are doing.
They're literally spreading Formula One. They are building
Formula One, boxing, now top.
So I even forgot WWE.
WWE.
So, look,
Anthony Joshua and
you say so they know what they are doing. They know that sports is an avenue to raise your profile. And that's the truth. They are trying to raise their profile.
The Qataris did it with PSG.
Exactly. So that's just a part of the thing. But for me, part of the problem is, I believe the whole issue about players moving and the money thing is a bit hypocritical. Because we sit here week in, week out and see top players leave top teams all across Europe to go and play for mid-table, relegation-threatening teams in the Premier League. I've never heard anyone complain about this. The people in those
South America is a good example.
Yeah, the pundits in Italy, Spain, and France, they complain about the Premier League. Now that it's been down to the Premier League, we are hearing, Jimmy Carragher, Gary Neville, and co complain. For me, it's the way of the world. It's the way of football. It's always been, like you said, South America. If you look at South American leagues in the 70s and 80s, their teams could compete with European teams, even the 90s.
Because they were keeping
Because they were able to keep their players for longer. They had more time. Because it was until the 90s, top South American players were not moving in their teens and early 20s. They would reach a certain kind of status, their peak, their prime, before they'd move abroad. But it's reached, they are going earlier and earlier. Look at Neymar. If not for the fact that Neymar was insisting he wanted to win the Copa Libertadores before he left Santos, he would have been gone at 17, 18. Look at Vinicius Jr. Look at Endrick. Endrick has already been bought. He's 16. He's already been sold to Real Madrid. And these are the top talents that are coming. Look at Rodrigo. Similar to that, about 40 million. So for me, if that's what Europe is doing to other continents, it's just a circular kind of trade. Every continent, whoever has the money is going to do that. And once we allowed it to become the norm, we allowed, top teams to be able to buy any player they want at any age, we've created this problem. It's something that we have all accepted. So it's very hypocritical to turn around when it becomes your turn to be the market, to now say that it's not fair and that kind of stuff. And the truth is, with this sports washing thing, if people are so concerned about it, certain things shouldn't happen. Certain people should not be allowed to buy clubs. You allow the Saudi PIF to buy Newcastle, but when the PIF wants to buy players for their own league, it's not all acceptable. You are okay with Saudi money in Newcastle buying players, bringing them to the Premier League. Sandro Tonali just became the most expensive Italian player and has joined Newcastle from AC Milan. Think about that. If someone told you 10 years ago that AC Milan would be now selling one of their top Italian players to Newcastle for a record fee,
you won't believe it.
You won't believe it. But this is
where it typically happens the other way around.
Exactly. Now the balance of power has changed. This is Saudi money funding it. I have not heard anyone complain about Tonali's transfer to Newcastle. But now that Kalidou Koulibaly, Ruben Neves, and other players are going to Saudi Arabia, the same PIF money is become a problem. I think it's quite unacceptable.
Just before I move on,
I just want to talk about the Chelsea thing. I want to say the Chelsea one is a bit shady. Is shady the right word? It's a bit
controversial.
Because the PIF has also invested in Clear Lake Capital, which owns Chelsea. You see, so it's almost like to do their FFP, they are kind of, And the truth is, what they are doing is perfectly legal. But if you get what, but you know,
I get what you
it's
mean.
on the borderline of what is really
They are literally testing the laws.
Yeah, exactly. So I can understand why people are, the Chelsea one. I can see why there's a bit of controversy. But at the end of the day, once they are not in the same, you know, the same league, the same confederation, you really can't do anything. And once the players accept the contracts, it's fair game. Just that this is the one thing that will happen is that the value of the transfers, because remember Juventus got in trouble for the value of the transfers being a bit high. That could be the only thing that could come up later. But aside that, it's just a bit on the borderline of what is acceptable behavior.
But the Chelsea bit, the reason why they're consistently selling to the Saudi league is that how many teams in Europe or in the world can afford the wages of these players?
That's also a fair point.
It's just that the Saudis
and that's why we see
they can afford it.
You are right. That's why we see the top 6 teams selling to each other all the time. That's why Kai Havertz he can only move to Arsenal and some other clubs.
Just a
that's
few
why
teams
Mason
can
Mount
afford the wages.
can only go to Manchester United. And that's why Sterling moved to Chelsea. Right now, the top 6 have created something with the wages and transfer fees they demand and pay for players that is almost impossible for them to buy and sell to anyone else. Aside maybe PSG, Bayern, Real Madrid, and Barcelona when they eventually sort out their financial side. No other clubs on the continent are going to be able to buy the top players playing for English teams. So there's also that aspect. But at the end of the day, it's just, I feel after the 2030 World Cup, we'll see less of these transfers. But
I was just about to ask.
They are trying to build their credibility, and it's up to them how they do it.
One, you think this is sustainable, and should Europe be worried? I heard Seferin in an interview, UEFA president. He says he's not worried, but I'm thinking a few years ago, the MLS was doing it, but those was like Kaká, David Villa. Those are players who were past their prime. These are 27, 28-year-olds. In fact, guys like Anderson Talisca, remember he moved to the Al Nassr 2-3 years ago from Benfica when big teams were looking for him.
I believe he went to Turkey first. You know? And the truth is, some of these players, we have to be honest, and I said this last time on Sports Point, and I'll say it again, you are doing a job. If we are here and someone offers us 10 times our salary, it will be very difficult for us to say we are not moving company. Like, we have to be honest, because it's 10 times your salary. So
and it's tax-free and stuff like that.
If you're a football player being offered 10 times your already large salary, I know there's the argument that they already make a lot of money. They will never go hungry if they manage their money well.
But this one, you're setting yourself up for generations. It's
10
generational.
times, 5 times your current salary. It's difficult to say no. We also have to be honest that they are human beings too, that they don't exist for our whims. They are people too. So I think sometimes fans need to take a step back and ask themselves, what would you do in their situation?
Just thoughts on that.
Honestly,
sustainability.
Sustainability. I think they can sustain it because they are working towards 2030, and 2030 is Vision 2030, according to the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, and it is to diversify the Saudi economy and, like Susu said, to raise the profile of Saudi Arabia.
And they've put aside 20 billion by the way. So this transfer you're talking about, they put aside 20 billion. There's a lot more where it came from.
Yeah, and it's to ensure that they have soft power, because Saudi Arabia is a big boy in the Gulf region. But when you mention the Gulf, the first name that comes to mind is UAE, Abu Dhabi, Dubai. Qatar. Then it comes to Qatar. Then it comes to Bahrain.
Qatar hosted the World Cup.
Exactly. Then it comes to Bahrain. Then you're asking yourself, where is Saudi Arabia in this mix? Because Saudi Arabia hasn't opened up the way Qatar has opened up, the way UAE has opened up.
And they feel they have more money.
They have more money. They have more money.
We saw the investments Qatar and UAE have put in their stuff.
Look, Saudi Arabia can do that five times.
Probably 20, 50 times.
Look,
what they can do, but they just have not done it yet. And they feel that, like that's the point.
It's time to flex our
muscles. It's time to flex the muscles, and they are trying to diversify the economy. So they are investing.
We are doing a bit of geopolitics.
They are investing in tourism. They are investing in tourism. That's why they'll pay Lionel Messi big money to take a day or two off from his PhD to be an ambassador for a tourism organization in Saudi Arabia. They are trying to diversify the economy outside oil, because 80% of the GDP in Saudi Arabia is connected to oil production. So if you can diversify the economy, boost tourism, get people to come into the stadium to watch people, sports tourism is a big thing aside the mainstream tourism. And so that's what they are working with. And I think it goes beyond the World Cup, because as it stands now, they've pulled out. of the World Cup bid because they were supposed to co-host with Greece and Egypt, Saudi
know,
Arabia, and Egypt pulled out in April, and now they've also considered that pulling out would be the best option. And so I think it goes beyond just the World Cup, and that's why I think it's sustainable because these guys are doing things that goes beyond the field. They are trying to build a new city, pretty much called NEOM, and it's all geared towards that vision 2030 by the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
This is probably the first time in football history you have more Ballon d'Or winners playing in Saudi Arabia than in Europe.
Look, trust me, the golden child that they want, it's not. It goes beyond Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. It's Mohamed Salah. It's Mohamed Salah that they want.
I'm beginning to hear it a lot.
Honestly, I think they're
looking for somebody.
Their step up was a bit mistimed. If they had done this last season, I honestly
when the salary agitations were there,
exactly, I honestly would have seen Mohamed Salah give it a serious thought because Mohamed Salah is the most popular Arab player in the world
by a long shot.
And so getting him that would be huge. Utterly seal it.
But the only thing that worries me about Salah is because he has a young family. His daughters are not too old. He might be thinking about because some parents think about. There's a lot of money at stake.
They settled down here.
We've settled down.
They're in a liberal country now.
My daughter has her friends. You don't want to disrupt your children's lives unnecessarily. So that might be the only impediment. If you were someone who didn't have young children and family, I think it would have been a very easy decision. But I think some of these players, that's what is actually holding them for making some of these.
I think the Jamie Carragher's and the Gary Nevilles are concerned is because of the age of the players moving in recent times. If it's Benzema, no big deal. If it's Cristiano Ronaldo, no big deal. But if you have serious considerations being made about Bernardo Silva, Hakim Ziyech.
But you see, Ruben Neves, I think he's not a good example because Ruben Neves left a Champions League team in Porto to go to join Wolves when they were in the Championship. So he has never been a player who has looked.
I think the main thing has to do with Bernardo Silva. If he moves,
that's a star. That's a bona fide star.
If he moves, then that's a big deal.
If you look at the Man City issues, and I think Man City players are also not good at. Man City and Chelsea are two teams that are not good examples of who to look at. Let's look at a team like Arsenal, who's on the up, who is now building their project. If their players were to give up on that project, I'd be more concerned. You look at Man City, where every 2 months we are hearing which this player is upset, this player wants more game time, because the squad is so competitive. A lot of players are on the verge of leaving very regularly. Everyone has their moments. Look at Laporte. Laporte went from the golden boy to not being able to get a game. He wants to go. Look at Cancelo. Last season, Cancelo was their key man. He was the one who everything went through. We come to this season, by January, Cancelo is gone. So I think looking at Man City players agitating to leave and wanting to leave, I don't think that tells us much. Then look at Chelsea, who spent a lot of money and trying to get rid of players. It doesn't tell us much. Let's look at establish a project that's coming up like the Arsenal project. Let's look at Man U, who are now kind of getting to a rebuild. What if Lisandro Martinez decides after 1 year he wants to leave? That is concerning.
Talk about a guy like Brozovic, still in his prime. I mean, he's moving to Al Nassr.
Well, he's 30, 31?
Yeah, he's 30.
Inter Milan are always trying to sell players. They're in huge debt. We are hearing Onana is on his way out. So I think when you look at the team, you have to also consider the context. I don't think Brozovic or any Inter Milan player going to Saudi tells me anything about it. And I think even Serie A players as a whole, if you look at the league is not doing too well.
The league doesn't have
exactly. So if players from that league go to Saudi, it's not a surprise. So like I said, if you look at certain teams and certain projects, and their players going to Saudi, it will tell us more. So if you look at a team that's more on the up, they are up and coming, they are building their projects, and their players decide to give up on their project. If Martin Odegaard or Saka was going to Saudi, or William Saliba, I'd be concerned. But if it's not those up and coming players, players who it's more players who've made their name, or players who play for certain. Because I would also say, if you see any Newcastle player going to Saudi,
don't be surprised.
Don't be surprised because of their links to the PIF.
We've established the Chelsea link, but I'm still surprised that Hakim Ziyech is going to Saudi Arabia at this point in his career. I feel like the Chelsea experiment didn't go too well. I feel like
he has more to prove.
After doing well at Ajax, he had a lot to prove. He's not hit the heights everybody wanted.
And another thing I wanted to say, if a Muslim or Arab player goes,
exactly,
it's also a bit different because remember, for the Arab world, we see the esteem they hold Saudi Arabia in. For example, we have a team in this country called King Faisal. After the former king of Saudi Arabia, King Faisal. There's a reason the team was named that.
They usually have a crescent in their
exactly. There's a reason their colors are green. These are all.
Yeah, you want to go to the Holy Land. You want to go to Mecca. You want to go to Medina.
The kind of esteem they hold Saudi Arabia in. So that's what I'm saying. Every transfer is different. I think we are overstating some of these moves. I think Ronaldo's move was a very big surprise. Then you also look at the salary Ronaldo was offered. He was never going to get that anywhere else.
Nope.
So I think context also matters. I think it will be very interesting when we start seeing players who are 25, 26 in their prime.
I think it will get
who are like top players who are at who can play for Real Madrid, the Bayerns, Man Cities, the up and coming teams of this world.
I think it will happen because the Chinese did it with Oscar.
Yep. Hulk.
Exactly. So I think it will eventually happen.
Hulk always chose, because Hulk chose, instead of going to one of the big boys, he went to Zenit.
St. Petersburg.
So you also have to look at the players.
Always look at the money.
Certain players are not
it's
concerned
all about the money.
playing Champions League.
If it's not about the money, there's no reason why there will be concrete interest for Mohamed Kudus to Brighton and Hove Albion from Ajax. So money plays a huge role. No matter how big the club is, it's all about the money. And at this point in time, the money that Saudi Arabia is offering, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if we get to that point where a 26-year-old, 27-year-old player consistently
a player that would make me very concerned if they move to Saudi Arabia and by concern, showing that there is power. I don't mind players moving around first, but a player that will show me that this is something really happening, if someone like Vinicius Jr., who is basically the next big superstar, in European football.
Decides to abandon Europe.
Or Erling Haaland.
I think that's a bit
or Kylian Mbappe. If one of those...
Isn't that too severe?
But that's what I mean. I want to see a player that I can feel like they can be the best player in the world.
But they are throwing it all away
choosing to go and play in Saudi Arabia. I think if I look at players who are struggling at their clubs, they are not doing too well, older players, it doesn't show me anything. It doesn't tell me anything about where it is. If we see a true superstar, a true best player in the world right in the middle of their prime, smack dab, or not even reach their prime yet going to Saudi Arabia, I think then we can start seeing is European football in trouble. But aside that, I don't think there's anything to worry about.
But someone can pull off an Axel Witsel, Carrasco move, play 3 years in Saudi Arabia, get all the money that you can, then come back to Europe and
that's
play.
what I'm saying. If Ruben Neves has done that, Ruben Neves could easily play 3 years in Saudi and come back and still
that's why I see that
Benfica or Porto or whoever.
It's workable. I don't see a Vinicius Junior going there because I think it's a bit far-fetched. But I see solid players, up-and-coming players, moving to Saudi Arabia who are around 25, 26 years
Talking about solid players, our own Thomas Partey has been thrown in the mix. Again, I don't believe the figures that are going around, but what we know for a fact is that there's concrete interest in Thomas. Now, he's 30. Should he take that Saudi money?
Oh, yeah, he should. He should take that Saudi money. At the end of the day, what does he need to prove? What does he need to prove? He has proven that he can get to the Champions League final with Atletico Madrid. He has proven that he can...
He's won a Europa League with Atletico.
With Atletico Madrid. He has proven that he can win the La Liga. He's won the La Liga title with Atletico Madrid, though his role was a bit on the minimal side.
2-3 games, but...
Yeah, it was on the minimal side.
But he was there.
But he was there. He did it. And so he has his medal to prove it. And at the end of the day, you are playing with Ghana. You are one of the big boys in the Black Stars. What is there to prove?
I don't think there's really an issue. We've seen
Asamoah
Gyan in his prime when playing
UAE.
We've seen Andrea Ayew contribute to the Black Stars while playing in Qatar. Yeah. Even Abedi Pele went to the UAE.
And he played for Al Ain,
exactly.
the same team that Asamoah Gyan played.
I heard he even facilitated there, But so the point is, we've seen for the Black Stars at least, it doesn't bother me. Yep. Whether Partey wants to do that, whether he feels he still has more to contribute, I think Partey still can contribute to a top European team if he chooses to do so.
But if I'm him, I'll be a bit worried about that, doing that consistently for the longest term because of the injuries. So I have to take care of myself. I have to take care of my family. Look, that money that they are offering is insane money. And honestly, you have to take care of the generations of parties that will come after you.
I like the sound of that. Take care of the generations of parties that will come after you. Let's talk about Nicolas Jackson, Senegalese striker from Villarreal. He's been bought by Chelsea Football Club. He signed a very long contract. That's what's going on at Chelsea now.
You know, it's so that they can spread. It's for accounting purposes. Because if for football accounting, the way it works is the value of a transfer. If you pay 50 million for a player, and he signs a 5-year contract, the value of the transfer is considered for each year of the contract. So it's spread 50 million over the 5 years. So 10. So if you buy a player for 40 million and you spread over 8 years, right? That becomes 5 million a year. Rather than if you give him a 5-year contract, it becomes 80 million. So it's all accounting shenanigans. I don't think
they're doing a lot of it.
Enzo
Fernandez, Mudryk.
Because if you are paying that much cash in transfer fees, for accounting purposes, if you are not able to push it over that spread, you cannot pass financial fair.
And there are incentives included in those deals too. So
goal bonuses.
Yes, goal bonuses. So bonuses. So there's a base salary, and there are incentives tied to it. So you might think, oh yeah, this player moved to Chelsea for this amount, and he should be earning around £200,000 a week. But when you look at it clearly, the base salary will be around £97,000, and the other things are tied to incentives. So it's a way of managing the whole financial situation.
Sometimes
but for me, I
going
hope,
under the tax radar a little.
I hope Nicholas Jackson isn't expected to start for Chelsea this season as their lead striker.
I feel like he'll be joining Datro Fofana in the reserve team.
I think he can contribute, but if he's going to be their starting striker, I think it's a lot of pressure. I think the step up will be hard. Because for me, if you score 12 goals
people barely even know him from Villarreal.
If you score 12 goals for Villarreal in La Liga, it shows you have some talent. It shows that there's a player who can can eventually become a great player. But if you want that player to come and lead Chelsea, a top team, to try and lead them back to the Champions League,
especially off the back of the season they are coming
compete for trophies, I think it's a lot of pressure.
I think he's the wrong profile of striker for Chelsea at this point in time. They need an arrowhead. They don't need a guy who is versatile to play across the front line. They need a target man.
I'll keep saying that the truth is Lukaku should be the one leading the line next season. But it looks like he has also decided he doesn't want to do that. So I don't know for him anymore.
Interesting days at Chelsea, but yeah, just again, quick thoughts. You spoke about needing that arrowhead for Chelsea Football Club. For them as a team, I don't hear a lot of transfer targets, nothing concrete. We've heard about Moises Caicedo. They've purchased Nicholas Jackson now, but it looks like they're more focused on clearing out.
Yeah, well, after all the players they bought, they have to.
And on top of that, you have a new coach, and so he has his style of players that he wants in the team. So you have to clear out, in quote, the dead wood, and bring in the players that the coach has requested for. And honestly, the only reason why you don't hear a guy like Harry Kane in the mix is because of the politics involved between the London clubs. And that's the reason why Harry Kane isn't being pursued by a club like Chelsea. Otherwise, honestly, I wouldn't have been surprised. Harry Kane would have already been signed by Chelsea.
I heard Daniel Levy said for Premier League teams, the price is 150 million, and teams abroad is 100 million. And this is a player going to the last year of his contract.
Imagine.
If he's being honest, he should take 80 million and run. Because this is a player also from the
Victor
academy.
Osimhen is another top option, but at the end of the day, he played in the Champions League. He's set to play in the Champions League this upcoming season. Would he accept?
I feel like Osimhen will be at Napoli by the time next
Europe
season begins.
I heard he's even negotiating a new contract.
So yeah, that's the only reason why they are not going for him.
I think Daniel Levy, if he was to get 60 to 80 million, he should take it and run. Because if you don't get that 60 and 80 million this year, it means you're getting zero next year. And that's one of your biggest assets. Because if you look at the team now, there's no players that I can see teams paying 60, 80 million for.
No.
Even Son Heung-min, because of last season.
His value has diminished.
His value has diminished. So honestly, I think Daniel Levy is being unnecessarily hard-headed.
You should have seen Tom Holland's video.
Maybe he feels that he can't. Maybe he feels like there's no striker he can get to replace him. So he might as well keep it. Maybe that's what it is.
Lose him for free?
Maybe if you can get a striker,
or try and convince him again. They've done it before.
At this point in time, I don't think he.
We all said that the last time.
Oh no, that's the thing. Harry Kane has never pushed for a transfer. He's never made a transfer request. He never put his foot down and said, "I want to leave."
Yeah.
He has to do that. If he doesn't do that, it will never happen for him. That's the way I see it. So
Harry Kane, looks like the world is watching. Will you sign for Man United? Will you sign for Real Madrid? Will you sign for Bayern Munich? Host of options out there, but that's all for Scorecard today. Special editions, like I said, from now up until the season starts, when we blow up onto 1 hour 30 minutes again. So we'll be bringing you a lot of these trending issues. Also match highlights of tournaments that are happening. So thank you very much, Susu Graham. Thank you, Yahweh J. Minta. Thank you, everybody out there, for doing the viewing with us. I'm sure we'll repeat tomorrow, I believe, at 1 p.m. And so you can catch the repeat of the show tomorrow. Same time next week, we'll be right here.